linear time works. Yeah.
Like, it's a timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly, sort of non-linear. Hello, everyone. It's Kristi here with Kevin, and it is
Hello.
Kristi and Kevin's happy hour. Say hello, Kevin, again.
Hello, Kevin, again.
You say Kevin when I say to say hello, Kevin. Sorry, I should say you should say hello when I say hello. Anyway, I've already messed up one joke for the night. We are here tonight to talk about an amazing piece of video art that came out over the weekend. But before we start with all that, Kevin, generally speaking, how's yous?
I'm all right. How are you?
Yeah, it's Friday. I had two Fridays this week. I had
That doesn't make sense. That's not how days work.
no, it's true because on Wednesday night,
Unless you flew over the international date line and had 2 Fridays that way, but that's
well,
cheating.
I had the experience of two Fridays.
Okay.
Right? Because on Wednesday night I was relaxing. We had public holiday on Thursday because it's some Christian thing. I don't know, Jesus flies up in the sky or whatever. And so I was like, oh, I can stay up really late and stay up on
Isn't,
Twitter and watch extra
isn't that
videos.
isn't that the one where Jesus takes on the Decepticons?
I think so.
Yeah.
Is that the one with Optimus Prime?
Yeah, that lad.
That
Wasn't he the one that betrayed Jesus for 50 pieces of silver or something? I don't know.
yeah,
I
and
might
there
be
was
getting things mixed up there.
might give you a few things when he was riding the dinosaur through space, but
And when did Hansel and Gretel come into this? I can't remember. I think it was in Psalms.
everything's in the Psalms. Um, so anyway, I got sort of like woo, stay up late and feel like it's a weekend on Wednesday night as if it was Friday night. And then I got, Thursday as Saturday, and then today was Friday, and tonight I have Friday night again, and then tomorrow I'll have Saturday again. It's awesome.
Oh my God, so you get 2 Fridays and 2 Saturdays.
Well, no, not unless I flew across the international timeline, could I technically?
Yes, that is true. You learn well.
Which was, yes, stealing your point and bringing it and smacking you in with it.
Yes.
So that was my big exciting thing that happened this week. Nothing.
Nothing. Yeah.
A day of nothing.
That's good. Nothing is better than, I don't know, getting, I don't know, explosive diarrhea or something.
Yeah, much better. A lot of things are better than explosive diarrhea. But hey, by the way, in the spirit, just before we go into the video, I'll ask Kevin about things because I have a lot of stuff to say. So I want to give him time to talk at the beginning of the show.
Before we go into the video, we should explain what the fuck it is we're doing.
But no, we're gonna do the trivia.
Oh, for fuck's sake!
We're gonna do the trivia. Yeah, right. We do the pub quiz trivia. So for those of you in the chat here, you can test your brains and no cheating on Google. Either you know it or you don't, or take a guess.
No, cheat on Google.
Don't look it up.
I'm telling you to look it up.
What is the name of the director of the video we're talking about? This Is America.
Dave Jones.
And we'll be talking about Davy Jones' camera techniques and film techniques later on. It's not Davy Jones. It's not.
That's a callback to a joke that was off air earlier. So
yes. Yeah, the guys who can't even get that one. They don't even have a chance at getting that call back. That's
exactly. That's literally, that is an inside joke that you won't be able to get. So I really shouldn't have told it on air, but I'm a rebel. I don't play by the fucking rule book.
No, and by the way, Social Equalizer comes in first. Hero Mirai, correct answer. Ding, 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 ding. Winner, winner. Chicken or tofu dinner, depending on your vegetarian or meat eating preferences. Right.
Exactly. We're okay with vegan winners. That's okay.
Yeah. All right, so congratulations there, Social Equalizer. Very smart. Well prepared for this hangout.
Indeed.
Well, now can we talk about it? On my own show?
Well, no, I was trying to prompt you to say, oh, we're going to do this thing about This Is America. Because you said before we get into the video, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh my God, is she just going to start playing the video? We're not actually going to set up what we're talking about here.
So this kind of complaining is what I have to deal with in the after show. It's just Kevin going minute by timestamp minute, telling me what I did wrong. No, just kidding.
I'll get to the end and I think I've disrupted her enough. I feel like I've not won, but I feel like
You've won.
You know what I mean?
Mission achievement unlocked.
Like I've taken a really clever person and made them sound slightly less clever than they actually are, which is, I think that's the British way.
You're the Morty to my Rick. You hide my genius.
Oh, don't even start with that. Fucking Kanye West, the prick.
What? Kanye West?
Did you know that was the tweet from yesterday?
Oh, right. Well, he likes it, but that
he loves the show. He loves it. and you've made me like the show now. So now I have something in common with Kanye West, and I feel fucking dirty.
Well,
And in a good way.
I would bet, not knowing him personally, but probably Kanye West likes a few sports things that you like as well. So it's merely another point on the Kevin Bacon of things that you have in common with Kanye West. And
well, true. I mean, we both take in oxygen and stuff. So
yeah,
I mean,
exactly. It's a lot in common.
But you and Roland's foisted me with this one. This didn't have to be a thing me and Kanye had in common.
All I have to say is, after swimming for hours and hours in the filth of the manosphere videos that you do for your research, this seems a minor taint by comparison.
Well, and if there's anything I like, it's a minor taint. Absolutely.
That's what he said.
That's what he said. Yeah, but I'm also now reading Jordan Peterson's book. So, I mean, I just immerse myself in shit. I live basically in essentially a kind of a moral sewer is the world I live in online.
You are our spy on the inside.
Oh God, yes, that's
You're
true.
in there digging through, watching their horrible videos, reading their pedantic, self-indulgent books.
Yes, well, and literally, I'll spoiler alert here if you haven't read the book, but he literally starts off the first chapter with the line about lobsters. That's literally the start of the book. It's lobsters.
It doesn't disappoint.
Exactly. I mean, you get what you get.
It's not like going to see Aerosmith and whatever, one of some great Aerosmith songs they don't play till the end. He put the lobster right there. It's like the opening with your biggest number right there. You still there? Or did you disappear again? You seems to have disappeared.
Hello.
Yeah, now you're back.
I disappeared, sorry. You missed my great line, which is annoying.
I did.
I was saying you need to take his lobsters with a pinch of salt. Come on now.
And lemon. I don't eat seafood. All right.
I like a bit of fish, but other than that, I'm not a lobster person or a crab person.
No, I can't. No, I can't do any kind of seafood, really. Not like allergic reasons, just I don't know. But anyway, we were going to talk about this piece of art, this video art thing that came out on Saturday, released by, well, I guess he goes by two different names. The video title is under his music artist name, Childish Gambino. Also, Donald Glover is his actual real life name.
Yes.
And right. So now that we're like 6 minutes in or 7 minutes in, and we've bored everyone who actually came to watch it. They're like, when are they going to talk about the video?
Exactly. People will click on this thinking, it's a think piece about Childish Gambino, and they're going to listen to us ramble about shit and lobsters for 10
minutes.
Yeah.
Before we get on with it. But that's a show format. We can't just change it.
Exactly. That's our format, people. Get used to it.
It's like the match of the day theme tune. You can't not have it. It has to be there, otherwise it doesn't feel like the show.
Well, I think of it more like herpes. Once it's there, it's not going anywhere. Do you know what I mean?
Just settles in.
Exactly. Just the occasional riff, but it's going to happen. So
All right. So I should first start off with saying is clearly this is two white people, neither of whom live in the United States. Talking about a piece of art that was developed by people who are living in the United States and speaking to the African.
You say that I'm white. I actually just play at white on the internet.
So. Oh, I thought you were going to say you were fully translucent. You just powder down for the shows.
Exactly. I'm actually see-through. I tan up. That's how thin I am. I tan up for my videos just so you can see me. That's how white I am.
You have to go lay down in a sunbed for a full hour before you can even sort of make up.
I'm like a baby fish. You can almost see through me. It's ridiculous.
All right. So
anyway, we're going to make a serious point about talking over racial minorities, and I've just made a joke of it. Silly.
But clearly, we are not like the people who have the experience, right? We're coming. My role, I guess, I feel like this is very much someone from the outside coming in and looking at it. And so I want to say a couple things first about it's the amazing video. It was, like I said, came out over the weekend. So much going on in it. And so I want to just shout out Embrace the Void, who sent out a tweet about going full Hamilton on this song and video. And I was like, the full Hamilton? What do you mean? And the reply was, well, that's when you become obsessed with a piece of musical art and you read all the lyrics and you do a bunch of research on it and you watch it a bunch of times and try to figure out everything that's going on. I was like, oh, okay, I get the full Hamilton, because that's precisely what I did with Hamilton. Yes. And then I went and proceeded to do the full Hamilton on This Is America. So the way that I did it was I watched the video. I was just blown away by it. And I wanted to hear what other people said, so I consumed. Fortunately, because of the time difference, Saturday had gone by, and I think I caught up to this in the last couple days. So I had lots of. I don't watch reaction videos. I watch the people who are trying to explain it because I find their personal takes more interesting. And also, there's some stuff done. PBS had some experts on people who are professors of African American history or history of African American studies. Currently, heard some of their takes on it and listened and listened and listened and listened and thought. Today, when I was doing research for this, I saw news clippings that Donald Glover has decided not to talk about what the video means. And in a lot of ways, that actually I feel much more free to speak to what I see now than I did before, because I felt like I wanted to hear what other people had to say first and listen to their takes and things that I wouldn't have considered. But if the artist, the primary artist, because a lot of people collaborated on this to make it happen, but if his take is, I'm putting this art out for society to engage with, and I'm not going to tell you what to think about it, and I'm not going to tell you what it is supposed to mean, then it feels like it's much more open for a lot of interpretations. And so first I listened and thought, and now I want to talk to it.
Well, I think he's actually playing a really coy and clever game, because he said, like you say, he doesn't want to talk about it. And when asked about it at the Met Gala, he was saying basically, I just wanted to create a good song. And that's clearly not fucking true. Clearly, that's, I mean, if you want to boil it down, that's a lie. But what he's doing, I think, is playing a good game, because he's trying to actually get a message across, and not specifically to black people, because black people sort of inherently, a large portion of them will understand it because they've lived it to an extent. But to white America, and it's quite a harsh message he has to say. So trying to hard sell that and trying to tell white America specifically what they're supposed to get from this might seem condescending and might rub people up the wrong way. So I think he's essentially putting it out there, hoping that some of it will seep into middle America in a way that it wouldn't if he was doing a kind of Muhammad Ali in your face version of sort of black activism, as it were.
Yeah, I think it's always when the artist doesn't hear, sort of prescriptively say, this is what this symbol means, it makes art into much more of a mirror. And so it becomes more about your experience with it, or listening to other people's experience of it, or listening to other people put it into a context that you hadn't thought about, and evaluating, the merits of that. And as we go through the video tonight, I'm going to try to mention as many ideas that I've heard as possible about what things are happening in the course of the video. So this will very much be fair use. If you haven't seen the video already, you need to go watch it before you watch us watch it. We are going to be stopping it every few seconds, or in a way that will interrupt the flow.
Well, exactly, yeah, because it really is you'll get a sense from our stop-start version of it, but the kind of the running the kind of chaos theme that runs through the whole thing, and it kind of feels rather breathless at times and quite intense and full on. You won't get that from watching us start it, because it's that kind of sensory overload won't exist, because you keep getting breaks with us talking in between.
Yeah, and still frames where you can look at the screen and the shot to see what's happening in it. And so
and also, apologies if you can hear the shouting children outside my fucking house. There's nothing I can do about them.
It's tried, summer.
Well, I tried shooting them, but the police said that was against the law. Jesus.
You mean with a water pistol?
No, with a fucking bazooka. Which, I mean, well, I should say with an AK-47, which will be a good lead-in.
Oh, no. Yeah, I guess in some ways you're trying it thematically to the major theme, a major theme of the video. Right. So that was my background with it, Kevin, moving swiftly along. Do you want, I feel sometimes like No Illusions with you, where he has to keep the show going and try to rein in Heath and Eli from saying things that are really inappropriate or potentially illegal, or, worthy of a civil lawsuit. So moving
along. You said you wanted to do this, and I hadn't seen the video yet. So I went actually looked at the lyrics first, because I wanted to see what the poetry was.
Excellent. We're going to be talking about that too.
Yeah. It's very stripped back, quite sparse. It's not like when you hear rap song, you think, well, it's going to be often like rap lyrics are much more extensive than you would get for like a 4-minute rock and roll piece or something. But they're actually quite sparse and stripped back, which works really well, because a lot of it's about, or a lot of the theme, or one of the main themes, is about distraction and about having like the center of attention be the very core of the screen rather than this externality, the actual kind of major issues around the edges. And I think that having too intense a lyric would, I think, take away from that in some way. So I quite like the fact that it is quite stripped back, but it still tells a message in as few words as possible, almost like a comedy. And it is a comedy writer by trade, really. That's how he got his start, wasn't it? A comic writer trying to get down to as few words as possible. You want as short a setup as possible, and then get to the punchline. And I think that skill he's developed works really well in this context. It wouldn't work for every rap song, but certainly this one works quite nicely.
And I don't know the extent to which, you know, their vision for this song existed at the time of its creation, or if it emerged as a consequence. But yeah, you're right. The song and the visuals end up working very, very well together. When I saw the performance he did on Saturday Night Live, after having seen the video, I was like, oh, okay, it's just going to be the dancing. But the impact of it was very different.
Well, it's sort of fascinating to see how far he's come in such a relatively short period of time, that he's brave enough to try a song like this on a national institution like Saturday Night Live. That's quite brave in a way.
One other thing I want to say before we start, I am never going to say I'm explaining this video, because I don't think, as I said, I might have hinted at before, I don't think any one person can explain it. I think we can interpret it. And if,
well, I think that's actually another element of why Glover probably doesn't want to, because there are probably elements of it that, like you say, there are other artists involved, and so you'd need to have 3, 4, 5, 10 different people to fully explain it. There are probably elements that even he not necessarily isn't aware of, but wouldn't fully be able to explain in their context in a way that maybe the director could or something. Right. I think that's probably interesting. And
it's not a you know, a Sudoku puzzle that you finish and there are right answers. This is art, and so it lends itself to, again, being a mirror of your own experience and understanding, and putting that in context with how other people experience it.
Well, exactly. And I think if there's anyone in the world that can fully explain the urban black experience, it would be a white English kid. Definitely.
We're not attempting to explain anything here. It's very postmodern, our take, which Jordan Peterson would find just, you know, so annoying.
Well, look, I didn't choose the thug life, but I can damn well explain it to people who've actually lived the life.
So we can white explain.
Exactly, I'm going to white explain the way through. No, this is just a personal take, rather than, I'm not going to for a second try and explain that lifestyle, because it's not one I'd like. Even from the perspective of Kristi, like, at least she's lived some part of her life in America, so she has a better understanding than I.
Not much, just more exposure to media, but my experience was, you know, white Wisconsin, so I'm.
Would your virtual Canadian upbringing
basically, yeah, pretty much
is that not exactly like Compton, really?
It's, you know, Clover, Compton, you know, Sheboygan, you know, the south side of Chicago.
Yeah.
All right, I've got the screen up and we're going to start. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to watch a bit and then react. I'm probably going to have a lot to say. Kevin, I don't know how much you'll have to say, but obviously you can always ask me to stop at any time. And if there's any problems with the sound, Kevin, can I have you watch the chat to see if they can basically, I want you to be not able to hear it perfectly, but enough to kind of capture what's going along.
Do I need to pretend to care what the chat think now?
Just on the sound side of it, just on a technical. You don't actually have to care about their opinions.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing. Chat for the next hour. Just give me the sound. Just say the sound's good. Don't tell me what you think. I don't care. Jesus Christ.
All right. And after 20 minutes of waffle, we're finally going to start with the analysis, or at least the interpretation.
There's no one watching. Anyone watching in the future is coming here thinking, oh, well, I want to see my millionth think piece on Childish Gambino. Let's listen to this. And then they've gone, no, lobsters, fuck it.
I'll have to put a timestamp, replace it. Start at 21 minutes in or whatever.
Exactly. Skip all this shit.
Skip all the shit with Kevin and Kristi. Get right to the video. Yeah. That'll be the time. Right, so again, I'll play this first bit. If you guys have feedback in the chat on the sound being too soft or whatever, just let us know after the first stop.
Yeah.
All right. So I don't remember always where I got these things. So there are pieces of information I picked up from watching probably about 15 videos on this. Someone in one of the videos said that so this artist, his name is Calvin II. He's a musician, I think in the Los Angeles area. And someone said this is a traditional like Cuban wedding outfit. I don't know if that's true, but the guitar is also like a Spanish guitar or whatever else. So basically the hint there is that there are some Cuban themes that are tied to this artist and the guitar in order to signify that. Right?
Also, because obviously I watch the worst people in the world, a theory was going around that this wasn't actually this Calvin II chap, but that it was Trayvon Martin's father, Tracy Martin, that he'd put him in there specifically. Like he was pretending to play the guitar. It isn't. I assure you, that's just a conspiracy theory. It isn't Tracy Martin.
Yeah, I heard that too.
He does look rather like him, but he's not him.
Right. All right, continuing. Oh, what? By the way, while we're stopped, what did the chat? Does the chat say anything about the volume?
Sounds fine. Sounds fine. It could be louder.
Okay, I can turn. Oh, my dad's gonna go crazy in the next room. Like I can hear the song and start and stop and start and stop. But oh well. Yep.
It said it could be a bit louder.
I did just turn it up.
Oh, sorry. Okay, my bad.
Okay. While we're here, I do want to point out the camera techniques of Hiro Murai, which we mentioned as our pub quiz question. I watched a couple of his videos and a documentary interview of him, and his style. One thing I noticed about his style, he tends to do. Someone else pointed this out. Really long opening sequences. So in his videos, this sort of long fluid opening is rather typical. But you'll notice, or maybe you won't, over the course of the video, the camera is always moving. It's either like moving up or down or a panning across, or it has a sense of almost floating through space. And he also uses the technique of the whip pan, where you do a quick pan to the left or the right, and during the course of that, you make a cut and then reintegrate your next scene. But to the naked eye, it looks like it's a single fluid motion. And we'll see the use of that technique again in order to not really interrupt the flow of visuals as they drift across the scene. So I just wanted to point that out now early. So we want to talk about the stance moves?
Yeah, it's supposedly the shucking and jiving element of it. And you see it in a moment, don't you, with the pose he pulls just before... well, actually, there's no point not doing spoilers. We're about to watch it. Before it shoots the guy in the fucking head. That pose is very, very odd and only fits with the idea of him playing the kind of Jim Crow character.
Right. And while we're on this shot, I've seen a couple different interpretations of what he's wearing. So in an article, this I got out of, I think it was, I can't remember now what article, but the idea here is that he's dressed in a way very similar to a Nigerian musical artist who's kind of considered the handle of Nigerian sort of music. And he wears a style very similar to Fela Kuti. Is the artist's name. I also saw people interpreting the chains as references to American slavery, but gold chains in order to be a reference to consumerism.
Yeah, I also saw one which I think was a bit of a stretch, but I mean, it could be, I don't know, is that his trousers are those, and indeed the shoes are those of the style of a Confederate soldier during the Civil War.
I looked at the Confederate outfit. There's a lot more buttons.
Well, that's why I think it's possibly a stretch too far,
yeah.
but it could be a visual allusion to that. I don't know.
Right. So people are seeing that. And anyway, some people see that, right?
And
we're talking about interpretation.
Having such a fucking diverse piece of art is that there's so much going on, so much visual. Like you say, there's not a finite end to this.
While we're going on, I want to point out a couple things too while we're paused, which is obviously the theme. We talked a little bit about the lyrics, and they are going to be up on screen because I put the CC on there because I wanted us to be able to see what they are. But also, I noticed while listening to it, first you should listen to it in your headphones. When I did that, it was a very different experience than listening to it over speakers because he's got like two different tracks saying the same thing. So they're singing in harmony, but they're not perfect. It's not copies of each other. Yeah. And there's a lot of other interesting things happening with the song when you wear your headphones. So definitely do that.
Also, one for the basketball fans. He looks a bit like James Harden there, but that's really weird because he's pulling a silly face, and yet he looks like an actual human being that exists. There are about 3 people who get that, but they will be laughing, I'm sure.
All right, it's a very inside joke there. Very niche audience there.
Well, not really. The NBA gets massive viewing figures. How dare you?
Right, but the Venn diagram of people who watch the NBA and watch this particular show
is me. I'm the middle there.
There's Kevin.
Yeah.
Put your headphones back in. I can hear myself.
Well, it's better to hear yourself than to hear me, Kristi. That's all I can say.
The other thing that we want to talk about in the lyrics is, again, this focus on materialism, money, and partying, which are typical themes in all pop music, right?
Well, there is, and I'll when we get to it, there's a one element where it's going about 100 bands. I think that's it. This isn't just aimed at white America. I think there are elements where he's not taking a shot at, but trying to expose to black people about elements of black culture that he doesn't necessarily think are helpful.
All right. I'm now out of things to say about this, so I think we can continue on. Sorry about the skips there. This is America. All right. So 2 things. One is there's this like grinding, almost like factory-like noise once the gunshot goes off, and the whole "This is America" chorus part of it always has this driving, almost mechanical sound to it, like it's a factory churning out, distractions. I don't think that was meant necessarily, but it's how I kind of read it. And everyone, of course, talks about, yeah, go ahead.
The fact that it's in a factory-like setting or a warehouse-like setting seems appropriate given that.
Yeah. Now, everyone, of course, talks about the difference between the way in which the guns are handled in this video and how the human beings are handled. And as you see from this shot, the young man who is receiving it is taking it into a red cloth. And obviously that could be considered red for blood. But another interpretation that someone had was that it stands for Red America, and how Red America is more focused on its guns and protecting its gun rights than it is in protecting human life.
Well, my interpretation was that of the red carpet, of it being being put on a certain sort of pedestal in a way that human life isn't.
That one I hadn't heard. So,
well, I hadn't. That was as far as I'm aware, an original thought on my part. So I'm sure
we can have those.
Yeah, apparently so.
All right. Okay, so continuing on with the song, and yeah, apologies for the slight skips and whatnot. I don't know if it's a problem with my Wi-Fi or just the catching up because I'm trying to do multiple things at once. Actually, what I might do is just close out our chat because I don't need to, we're not going to be watching it anyway. And maybe there we go. Yeah, my computer's a little on the slow side, so hopefully that'll help. Don't catch you slipping now. Don't catch you slipping now. Look what I'm whipping now. This is America. Don't catch you slipping now. Don't catch you slipping now. Look what I'm whipping now. All right, so these lines I think are really interesting about the juxtaposition here of the idea of America being the land of of opportunity, and you can make it big. But this line, about slipping up, and I think especially with Black artists and Black athletes, they're under a particular strain of being perfect or being more criticized when they do things comparatively. And the line here, look what I'm whipping now. I did see in all places Spotify a reference or an explanation of this line that linked it with like creating drugs, like making drugs. But my initial take on this was, in terms of whipping things up, he's whipping up a conversation that's very uncomfortable for people. Any thoughts on the lyrics there?
No, well, I think you summed it up rather well, actually, all the possibilities. But I think what we're going to get into now, I mean, you can already see one of the points I mentioned earlier about the focus on the center of the frame and not noticing, like, for instance, the fact that the dead body has now been dragged away. That's not even in the shot at all now, but you don't focus on that. You just focus on, oh, the happy black man dancing. That's the kind of the distraction element of it.
And the director is purposely doing a more shallow depth of frame in order to keep things closer to the camera, more in focus. So our eyes are sort of naturally trained to gloss over that stuff. If you think about Handmaid's Tale, that use of very shallow depth of field was used a lot to kind of create a sense of intimacy and the rest of the world not really existing or being somewhere very far away. And that technique, especially in these warehouse shots, is used especially to help that effect. Yeah.
Also, one element that you can just see one of the people entering the frame right is the fact that it's school children that are often dancing with him. Which I think, like I say, is one of the elements of black culture that he might be critiquing in some small way. The fact that children are, I suppose for their own mental health in many respects, taught not to focus on the really horrific shit around them and just enjoy the theatre, the distraction.
Right. And they're also all wearing school uniforms, which obviously indicates their age. But I did see someone say that it looks very sort of 1960s in its style. So there's a possible way you can make some connections between the civil rights, kids living in the civil rights movement and what they fought for, and now today's youth in terms of culture, what they're being handed in terms of distractions and keeping them from not seeing the problems, but from society seeing the problems that they're living in and doing anything about it.
And also, I think it's a knowing thing he's doing by putting himself at the center of the frame as well, because the obvious critique of that as a concept is that, well, he's doing the same thing. He's doing distraction, even if it's raising an awareness. But yeah, of course, how else do you raise awareness then without some sense of distraction?
I heard a conversation. This is between 3 African American men. They were talking about whether or not, like, how should we read his role here? Is he America? So he is sort of there to be standing in the role of things that happen so when we went back to the guy who the artist who now has a bag over his head, there was some mention in a video about a reference to Guantanamo Bay, because we've seen the Palestinian hanging technique with people with bags over their heads. And of course, Guantanamo is in Cuba, where the American part of it, linking then the Cuban part of it to the prisoners.
Oh, yes. Okay, I hadn't picked
not
up
the
on
prisoner,
that.
sorry, but not the escape, but the prisoner facility.
Yeah.
Right. So
well, I think he's playing America for the most part, but then when we get to the very end, when you see him running, I think that's him, or that's Black America.
Right, and this is it, because one of the things we're going to come to in the next shooting scene is there were so many African Americans I saw who really found that very disturbing, and there was like, why couldn't you have a white guy come in and shoot up the church? Because that's what really happened. And that tension, I think that was very disturbing for, with the baghead was pretty shocking, but when he turns around and shoots the choir, that is very, very a shocking thing. And for people in the community, people who are touched by that personally or had something similar, I can see why they would find just the scene of it, the idea of black on black violence again in a video, a little bit like, why couldn't...
That's why I say I think he's playing America rather than playing, necessarily a black man. Although, of course, he's doing, like I said, the ducking and jiving as Jim Crow at the start. I think that's him playing how America wants to see the black man, if that makes sense. Well, the way in which actually, and that even makes sense now. Another connection in my head when he goes on to talk about how you're alluding there to black athletes and black artists making it in America, but potentially being slipping up. It's through conforming to a certain stereotype of how black men are supposed to be.
Right. So don't slip up, right?
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, I think that this is very interesting because obviously if it was a white person who wanted to sort of take on the role of America, we wouldn't really have this where is he begin and where does America end? But because of course this is located
because whiteness isn't seen as different from America.
Right.
Whereas blackness is seen as like a particular part of America.
Right. So his physical body sort of has to represent, it represents, you know, in this video at least, you know, can be seen as representing the wider problems of American culture. But then, of course, because he's black and he's working with primarily black dancers and the setting on dealing with issues, this is speaking, I think, very specifically to the crises that people have in the African American community with gun violence, with instability, with you know, just a lack of the same kind of opportunities in life that other people naturally have, as well as a police oppression or harassment or anything else that they go through in their daily lives.
Also, another element, which I don't see where else I'm going to really mention this, but the fact that the actual setting of the thing, saying this is America, if you look at it, it's not dilapidated as such, but there's no huge amount of activity or beauty to it. It's quite a grim scene. Look at this empty, almost haunted looking warehouse with nothing going on, where things used to be. There used to be activity and economic, activity going on, and now there's just nothing.
And also for people in urban settings, for kids who don't grow up, you know, going to the Hamptons on the weekend, or even just, you know, sort of like, middle class stuff. If you grow up in a primarily urban area, that is your America. It's concrete and parks and basketball courts and buildings and roads, but that is for the urban setting for some people, yeah. All right, so moving on.
This is America. Don't got you slipping now. Look how I'm living now. Police be tripping now. Yeah, this is America. Under my area. I got the strap. I gotta carry him.
Right. So I want to just stop at this line here because I think it's really interesting. When I first heard it, the way he sets up the information, guns in my area, I got a strap, I got to carry them. It's like the problem exists, and, you know, black boys and black girls are born into these problems. Right. And they don't, like, they're put into situations where they might feel the best way to be safe, just like some white people. The way they want to feel safe is to have a gun. But if the conditions, you know, are set up for you, you're almost like funneled into a situation where you're far more likely to end up with gun violence or being involved with gun violence because of those conditions.
Yeah. Exactly what I've always said. I mean, I despise guns, but if I lived in America, like if I just happened to be born there, I'd have to carry one because everyone else is. Like, there really is no way of defending yourself or your property or anything without one in a lot of cases. And it's just seen as a part of existence. Like it says, I've got to carry them. It's not I choose to carry them. It's not I've got a Second Amendment right to carry one. It's I've got to carry one.
While we're also paused, and since we're going to be seeing a lot more dancing, I just want to mention Shireen Silver, who was the choreographer for the video. And when they asked, when they asked her to do the choreography, she brought in, they had one move in particular that they wanted to include, which is called guara.
Yes, the guara. It's the South African dance, yeah.
Correct. But her other influences were African dance and modern African American dance. So she wanted to draw on sort of the full heritage of African Americans and creating a movement.
Yeah, I think it goes even beyond just that, though. Obviously, obviously African American by the fact that it's African. Obviously, many of them draw their heritage back from Africa. But I think it goes beyond that to a more direct political comparison between.
Sorry, I clicked the wrong area. So can you say that last bit again?
Okay. Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it goes beyond just the kind of cultural heritage aspect to a more direct political comparison between the way in which, even in black-dominated neighborhoods like Ferguson, Missouri, a white minority power forces down upon an oppressed majority even. And I think that's a direct comparison with apartheid South Africa as well, from which the guara dance comes from.
Right. Okay. Thanks. Moving on.
Yeah, this is Guerilla. Yeah, I'ma go get the bag. Yeah, or I'ma get the bag. Yeah.
Sorry, can we go back a little bit? I skipped a little bit, and I think that there's more in the
You've just
lyrics.
paused him. You've just paused him at the start of the guerilla.
Okay, so next time we know when we're ending, we're going to start right where the guerilla starts.
Yeah.
So we're going back to the guns bit.
Gotta carry him. Yeah, I'ma go into this. Yeah, this is guerilla. Yeah, I'ma go get the bag. Yeah, or I'ma get the bag.
So yeah, he says, you know, I'm going to go into this. This is guerilla. To me, again, sounds like it's like with the whipping up. It seems to be he's talking about subversive topics.
And not just that, but the fact that the beat drops exactly on where he would have said war. This is guerrilla war. It means guerilla, because that's how it's spelled even in the lyrics. I think is a direct allusion to the fact that even saying the word war in that context would be seen as a step too far for the black man or whatever. Like that kind of subversive politics isn't allowed.
Right. Okay, so we all ready to watch the cool South African dance move?
He does it for about 5 seconds. Don't get like he's stuck in
Yeah,
do like
no,
a
it
big
is
thing.
cool though. It does stand out. It's a cool move.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'm so cold like yeah. I'm so dull like yeah. We gon' blow like yeah.
Actually, just noticing that. Yeah, we're about to get into some fucking heavy shit. Just noticing there, it's almost like a kind of version of the stanky leg to bring it to American culture. There you go. I bet you weren't expecting a fucking Soldier Boy reference there, were you?
No, not really. And there was the whip pan shot there, and remember to keep an eye on the movement of the camera. So
also the word whip. I can't believe we haven't mentioned that. The idea of slaves.
Of course, yes, yeah, right. The reference to slavery and whipping, yeah.
Sorry, just before we get, I think we've already mentioned what's going to happen now. I found this. I was genuinely not expecting this element of it because I thought, well, they're singing along with him, so it's going to be like a performance piece, and then oh my god,
right.
Yeah.
There's also someone pointed out the fact that it's a choir singing about money, and that's very American. You know, it's God is money, not necessarily, you know, what people, a higher power or a nobler idea. Yeah.
And of course, the fact that he's singing sort of, he says, Grandma told me that they're talking about sort of reparations type thing. The idea of, what do they call it?
Yeah, reparations.
No, I've forgotten the term they use for it. Basically, where the church, there's something like emancipation, something or other, and I've totally forgotten. It's gone from my mind. But basically, something theology.
Emancipation theology.
Right. No, I think it's called what's it? No, it's called something theology. Anyway, whereby black people find emancipation isn't quite the word, but basically find that through the church.
I think the Catholics have, there was some like revolutionary Catholic, you know, like thoughts during the wars in Central and South America, but I can't remember the term for it. I don't know if you remember, there was a movie about...
I'll see if the people in the chat, if the clever people in the chat can tell me the thing I can't fucking remember, that would be all.
Just uses you, he doesn't respect you. He doesn't respect you.
I don't respect you, but I'll disrespect you slightly less if you can tell me the thing I can't remember.
Liberation theology?
Yeah. Liberation theology, yes, there we go. Fuck's sake. The idea of liberation or emancipation, it works just as well, but it's not what it's called. Liberation through theology, basically the church being a liberator, rather than the fact that, you know, the way that it was, that the church was used as a tool of oppression, and always has been.
I remember I did a course on U.S. history, and my focus was on the religious reactions to slavery. And I was reading sort of primary accounts of Anglican ministers who had gone over to like minister, and they were writing back to their people that they knew back in the UK or whatever. And I remember one of the ministers had to deal with a woman who was quite uncomfortable at the idea that she might have to spend heaven with her slaves. If all these African slaves convert to Christianity, what happens when everybody gets to heaven?
No, exactly, yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, back to the video.
You see the ship in the
This is America. Don't catch you slipping now. Don't catch you slipping now.
And the fact that the killer gets away, the police don't even stop them. They just run towards the scene once it's already over.
And there was comparisons that, you know, after Dylan Roof was arrested, they took him to Burger King.
Yeah.
Mass murderer.
Yeah, exactly. You see it a bit later on where you see him as just a black man from the waist up, naked, obviously, with no gun in his hand, which I think is an allusion to the idea of black people being shot dead in that way, holding, you know, either nothing or like a fucking Mars bar or something. And the idea that Dylan Roof, who we know did a mass murder, was, like you say, taken in alive and even fed fast food restaurant fucking grub at the taxpayer's expense. Yeah. And even, I mean, another amazing example was the Waffle House shooter guy. He got bail.
Yeah, until there was outrage, and then he got taken away, right?
Yeah, but initially they didn't see anything wrong with him getting bail. Whereas the 3 strikes and you're out, people, you can steal a packet of biscuits, but your 3rd strike, you're going to jail for like 20 years. It's ridiculous. On
a technical note, another whip pan edit here coming up as we swept around. And also, of course, yeah, we talked about it earlier, but I guess we should talk about the reference to the Charleston shooting. Yeah, we have a little bit, you know, Dylan Roof, but as I said, I think that from what I heard in terms of reactions, the most negative reactions I've heard, especially like from African Americans, was their reaction at that particular piece of violence.
Well, I'm not going to tell them how they should react. My interpretation was that you see him as the black. I keep wanting to say Uncle Tom, but that's not the Jim Crow character, jucking and jiving across the floor, and then with the light-hearted music and them singing about "Grandma told me to get the money," right? And then as soon as he holds the gun, it goes dark again, and he shoots them, and it goes dark again, and it becomes just America. And you see him hand over the gun again to someone with the red cloth, and it's really nice. And and the bodies are just left there. You don't see what happens to them. For me, that's, like I say, it's the changing from representing what black people want, what America wants a black man to be, the kind of stereotype, the caricature, to being what America actually is.
And there's also just the suddenness with which these things happen, which is how gun violence happens, right? You're just going about, you do anything, and then suddenly, boom, like lives are lost and people are in agony. Communities because are in turmoil.
Dylan Roof literally sat there for an hour with his victims and said prayer. Madness, absolute madness. And then all of a sudden stands up and starts shooting them dead.
Wow.
Horrific.
And in the course of the video, of course, we just drop it and move on, which is what America often does, right? It focuses on it for a day, maybe 2, and then we move on.
Well, literally, like I said, the very first scene, you focus on the like you say, it's the shallow field of depth vision. You don't even see the fact that they just drag the body away and it's gone.
Right.
They literally just shot a man in the head, and it's gone, and you move on to a completely different thing with them dancing happy again.
And 30 seconds later, it's out of your head. It's
exactly. Sort of, it really is a brilliant piece of really deep art.
I know. That's why I had to do full Hamilton on it. Damn you, embrace the void. Thank you, but damn you. Right.
Look what I'm whipping up. This is America. Don't catch you slipping up. Don't catch you slipping up. Look what I'm whipping up. Look how I'm kicking up.
I didn't pick it up initially, but that when he puts his arm up and flexes, that's a reference to the famous Richard Pryor photograph with him in the American flag with that silly smile. And that's I believe I was told by someone who probably knows better than I that was, like I said, a reference to the idea of the black man succeeding by being that caricature, but actually underneath there's that more subversive element to what Richard Pryor became later in his career.
I actually think I found the photo that he was mimicking when he did the face at the beginning. And I missed it at the time because it was on my phone, but I didn't have a chance to send it to you. But I will send it to you. And then
again, actually, this is the perfect shot to still on for the, like I say, the distraction element. The focus is on the happy characters in the foreground, but you've literally got a riot going on behind them that you're not supposed to look at.
And all kinds of things. There's a second level up there. By the way, and the first time I did see the person jumping in the video, but I did not see the horse. I'll put my hands up. Okay. got one and missed the other.
No one sees the apocalypse coming, Kristi.
And now, while all of this chaos is going on in the background, they're talking about materialism and, you know, looking good, and the kids are smiling and happy and stuff. And yeah, it's just, it's meant to, here, look at me. I'm Gucci and I'm so pretty. It just really, it says a lot without saying anything directly.
Well, that's the thing. I think that, like I say, I think there are elements where he's trying to show some of the vacuousness and hollowness of a lot of what America wants black culture to be, that kind of, you know, money and hoes type blackness. Whereas actually there's really huge issues going on there that America doesn't want you to focus on.
Yeah. All right, so we'll continue.
I'm so pretty. I'm on Gucci. I'm so pretty. Yeah. I'm on get it.
And the fact that he's grabbing his he's grabbing his cup there is clearly like a reference to those kind of rappers that I mentioned.
Well, I was thinking Michael Jackson because he's like the original. But I guess grabbing your crotch is like kind of a thing everybody likes. A lot of people do. I don't grab my crotch, but I think a lot of people.
Well, yeah, I think yes.
Who are men do.
Yeah, exactly. Well, given half the chance, your president might, but that's a different thing entirely. But yeah, the grabbing of the crotch is a sort of ubiquitous rapper move, isn't it?
That's true. And there are. I have a take on the end scene. Well, not quite the last scene, the penultimate scene in the garage related to that. One thing too, Kevin, just if you, I don't know if you can on your computer, but I've sent you 2 pictures on Facebook in the message that we were doing, and I can't really give. You can maybe bring those up. You can share them at the appropriate time. So while we're here and paused, I guess we can talk about the very famous. This is a Sally, or that's a tool line related to the two interpretations. An instance where police shot a man holding a cell phone because they assumed he had a gun because he was black and had some dark plastic object in his hand. And then also the idea that cell phones themselves can be tools to help with documenting.
Well, that's I only really got that second interpretation because you literally see kids with cell phones like.
Yeah, we're gonna pan up now and do another.
Yeah, that's what when I mentioned the Jim Crow character, that's exactly the character. Yeah. And
are you showing?
And then there's so I'm not showing them though. I'm just
okay. Can you screen share or not?
Well,
you know what? Why don't we do that at the end of the video, and I'll go back to the beginning and we can match the faces up and see if maybe that's where.
Yeah, I think that's very possible. Yeah,
I felt pretty good when I found that. I was like, oh, detective. All right. All right. So yep, kids with their mouths with their faces covered. Does that mean that they're trying to remain anonymous? Does this mean they're silenced? Are they just watching passively? Are they documenting this? What is their role? And what they're literally in the upper stratosphere, right? They're a higher class, or they're in a second class, a higher class from everyone. So they have an vantage point here.
Is that possibly also a reference to, and it might, I mean, I might be just reading far too much into this, but is that a reference to the kind of world star hip hop just filming sort of gang violence or filming violence in general, as opposed to actually being something of worth?
Yeah, and doing something about it, or this is it. Like, this is it. What is slacktivism? If you're documenting stuff, is that a form of activism, or is there more you can do? Or are they just playing on their phones and not seeing anything?
Yeah.
Another possible interpretation that they're not sort of peering over or looking shocked. They're staring at their phones, but it's could be interpreted, I think, either way, that the kids are distracted, or that the kids could be the people who are documenting these things, or people can document these things and rectify these problems.
Yeah.
All right. Yep. Then done. Okay. Moving on.
On my Kodak. Black. Oh, know that.
Again, but there's so much going on there. It's out of shot now, but you literally see a car on fire, and you're focusing on the happy jig right there. And
it's a great dance move. Should we go back a little bit?
No, it's a fantastic dance move, but that's the point. You're supposed to focus on the thing right in the middle there, because that's where the camera's pointing. That's where the depth of vision is supposed to be. But there's literally a car on fire right next to them, and I think that's almost the most perfect metaphor for the celebrity obsessed America. It's almost absolutely fucking perfect. And there's a police car, obviously, as well. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so we had to go back a little bit to see the burning car, but that just means we get to hear more of the song, so that's awesome.
Work it. 100 bands, 100 bands, 100 bands. Contraband, contraband, contraband.
So one thing too, I've heard this more than once, that people think there's the cop cars like behind the horse or following behind the horse or ahead of the horse, and it's just in the same shot, but there's no movement on there. And also at the end, I showed this video to my dad and it's sparked an interesting conversation, but when he remembered the end scene, the final shot, he remembered him being chased by police. And I was like, I don't think it was just police. He's like, it was just police. It wasn't police. But it's interesting. It's a bit of a Rorschach test from what people remember, because I think it's the things that they associate. They put association.
I don't think you can really tell who's chasing him. They're not actually really visible. They're just sort of vague human-shaped figures, aren't they?
Yeah, but the way they're wearing clothing, it looks like actually just people from the set. Not they don't look specifically like police officers or anything. We'll get there, as you'll see. But
okay, but also one element of it, and like you said, there's an element of anti-materialism, if not necessarily anti-capitalism or anything like that. But when he's going to be singing 100 bands, 100 bands, 100 bands, which means basically $100,000 is the way it's been expressed, and he sings that literally as the horse representing supposedly the apocalypse, the biblical vision. I think is a really powerful piece of symbolism. The idea that this character, America, is focusing only on the money and not seeing the apocalypse striding past.
Right. While we're here and paused, I saw this pointed out today on Twitter, and I thought it was absolutely fantastic. When we get to this next line, there's going to be, at the end, a break in the music, and then there's silence. And after a period of time, the music picks up again. And somebody on Twitter today noted that there are 17 seconds of silence, and that might be linked to the 17 seconds, the 17 students that were killed at the shooting that sparked the most recent protests. So I went and I checked and I counted it off. I was like, damn, she's right.
Well,
so
the Parklands shooting.
The school shooting at I can't remember those initials for it, but I don't. They keep referring.
The one in Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah, Parklands. Yeah.
Okay. They call it PMS or PSM or something. Parklands, Maryland. Someone I can't remember now. MPS maybe. I don't. Yeah. Sorry. I know. I don't know every high school in the States. I feel bad now that I don't know something about the shooting victims. Anyway, moving on. So let's keep the silence going for that bit, and then we'll pick it up on the other side with commentary.
Got the plug on a hawker. Whoa, they gonna find you like hawker.
But I think that's the really powerful still image because it. Hello?
Oh, I didn't know you want me to pause it because there was no sound. So I thought you want me to go back a little bit.
Yeah, that's the still image, right? Because it zooms up, so you don't see the pants as such. So I think at that point it's just a black man holding nothing, but it says blam, and there's stillness and silence. I think is a really beautiful allusion to a hideously ugly thing. The concept of black people just being shot and not making no sound anymore because they were holding nothing.
I hadn't had that take before. I was distracted by the 17-second thing, but yeah, it's a good point.
Oh, thank you. See, 2 original thoughts.
Wow, you're on a roll. You're gonna break your 3 in a day, and then you get a gold star.
Yeah, well, let's not stretch things. Come on now.
Right. Now, pretty much nobody talks about this bit. And the one video I did see that talked about it assumed it was a cigarette.
Well, no, it's clearly it's a reefer.
Yeah, that was my take too.
Well, it clearly is. It's so obvious that that's what it fucking is, because if you actually look at it closely, it's either that or a rather poorly rolled roller. It's clearly a spliff.
Americans don't do rollies.
Well, and more fool them, frankly. They're much cheaper. But anyway, I haven't smoked in years. What we're talking about. Yeah, the problem I think is that he doesn't actually make a particularly big deal of it, which might in of itself tell you something.
Right.
But the fact that he doesn't actually really mention it, it just lights it up and smokes it on top of the car, as you'll see in a second. He doesn't actually do much with that. so it doesn't make sense. I don't know quite what he's trying to say, particularly.
One illusion, I mean,
problem.
it is known that African Americans are arrested at 3 times the rate of white marijuana users, even though that whites and blacks use marijuana at pretty much the same rate. It's definitely selective police enforcement. So it might be, again, you know, it's now what legal in California has been since the first of the year, right? So maybe they're just in California and he...
Another thing that's just struck me again, this is the thing, it's like a fucking onion. There's just layers upon layers.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that when he gets on top of the car, he starts going about get your money, black man, and he's smoking a spliff. So is he literally saying, as a rich black man, I can smoke this, I can get away with this because I'm rich? That's the only way in America you can be black.
I don't know. I was at that point thinking more about the fact that his falsettos reminded me of Prince. So that was I got distracted by the dance move.
Oh, because he's a black man in tight pants.
No, because he sounds a little bit like Prince in Kiss.
Your prurient thoughts. Kristi.
Oh, I have been holding back my prurient thoughts all through this video. Let me tell you.
I'll be honest. The way the litheness of the body and all the rest of it. I'm not gay, but you know what I mean. If he asked nicely, I think I probably would.
Yeah, I mean, given the subject nature of the video, I didn't want to bring that up, but
the problem I just realised, me and him kissing, it'd be like Velcro. It'd be ridiculous.
Your beards.
Yeah.
Wow.
We'd have to get to the hospital. It's madness. Try explaining that one to the fucking doctor.
Just you have to like basically like razor it off right from from your lip to your chin, and then you just have a bald spot, both of you right there.
I guarantee there are very few think pieces on this that involve men fantasizing about having to go to the hospital with glued together beards. There are very few, I imagine.
All right, so
and that's why you need like I say, the unique perspective of an English white kid to tell Black America what to think. Clearly,
your insights are going to be so valuable. They're going to be lining up around the corner.
Yeah, they're going to think, how did we live without this fucking idiot?
How do we live without the idea of Kevin and David kissing and their beards getting caught up together?
Exactly. Yeah.
So we're coming to the end of the closer to the end of the video now.
Yeah.
America, I just checked my follow and listen. You motherfuckers owe me.
So there's obviously a specific call out to Twitter culture and followers, and the idea that your meaning is gained through how many people are paying attention to you.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, but with the hood still on. So to me, I'm going to give you my pitch for what this means, and some of it is taken from an observation that a lot of these cars, or almost all of them, I guess maybe not that one on the left, but they're all crappy old cars. Most of them are apparently some sort of Toyota model, is what I was told. I'm not an expert, so I'll just repeat that if it's wrong. My mistake.
Fucking sue me.
Yeah, exactly. And they're all rubbish. So, and then there's one person here who's the anonymous artist, who we don't know who he is, but he's playing music. And when we pull out, we'll see that there's one woman. She's not dancing. So she's an atypical to a sort of hip hop stereotype of a hip hop video. She's fully clothed, also a stereotype against the hip hop video. So America's materialism, which normally in like some forms of entertainment are represented by wealth and cars and being famous. You've got an artist here with no face. You've got a bunch of shitty cars, and you've got a woman looking bored who, isn't really engaged, and she's certainly not naked dancing for your pleasure. So to me, it's sort of an inversion of what hip hop in particular, but of course any video, really, any rock, any pop music artist is about bodies and wealth and fame.
Well, exactly, yeah. And the fact that again, it's the juxtaposition between expectation and reality. I think that he's talking, like I say, he's talking about go get your money, as if it's this kind of typical rap thing. But like you say, everything about it, the shitty cars, the fact that the woman clearly isn't seeming to enjoy herself as this faceless artist just sat on a chair in a fucking virtually empty warehouse setting, is the juxtaposition between that kind of false image of Black American life and what Black American life actually is, which is oftentimes rather grindingly poor and not particularly pleasant.
Another tidbit of information is the woman's name is Szza, S-Z-A, Sorry, like German.
Well, it's probably,
pronouncing German letters now, and between an American letter, a British pronunciation, and a German pronunciation, I got there in the end.
well, but not just that, but is it done in a Wu-Tang fashion? Is it just scissor?
It could be. Don't know.
Like RZA and Jizza.
But what I do know is that people have commented on the fact that her hair is styled in the same style as Lady Liberty.
Oh, okay.
So it might be a reference there to the irony of liberty in America. Again. Well,
it is. I have to say, actually, that's a good point you raised there, because I was thinking as I was watching this, it's an odd reference point, possibly, but to Charlie Chaplin, the fantastic scene in what the fuck's the film called? Bollocks. Anyway, basically, these immigrants on a boat, and literally as they're passing Lady Liberty in New York Harbor, the immigration officer is beating them with a stick. Right. And that juxtaposition between what the thought of America, what America tries to claim itself to be, and what it actually is. Yeah. And that's, for me, that's a really high reference point, because Charlie Chaplin was he's seen as something of a joke now, but he was one of the great satirists of all time, frankly, of the moving picture. So I'm putting him up there.
You're putting it out there. Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Get your money, black man. Get your money, black man. Get your money, black man. Get down.
There's some great dancing here.
And also the Get Down, that's got to be a James Brown reference, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely James Brown. I hear Prince too, like I said, in there, and a lot of just sort of drawing on a rich history.
Well, it's not that, but it's the dance movements. They're very stereotypically James Brown.
And there you got, like I said, you got the woman. She's fully dressed.
Yeah. I'm looking at the hair. Is that Lady Liberty's hair?
Well, there's a picture on Twitter that people posted that you can see it better, because it's kind of, I think it's very, her hair is very long.
But yeah, I quite like now an extra little touch. The coat just sort of haphazardly draped over the thing. There's nothing stylish going on here. This is just a normal.
Well, if you think about like the spikes in Lady Liberty, you could think, the crown.
Yeah.
The crown in her hair on the points there could be what they were talking about. So
yeah, I suppose, but it's just that kind of the cruddiness, the kind of everyday ordinariness of it. Whilst you've got this topless black man dancing on top of a really shit car. It's like I say, it's that fantastic juxtaposition between not even the ideal of America, what America pretends to be, and what America actually is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But by the way, I just want to say that I think this shot now where they where Hero draws the camera out of the building and then again sort of moves it up, and then the movement continues into the very dark ending. So this is like this is the fairy tale. What we see now, that nightmare, was actually the nice side of things. I guess is my take on this. And then, as you point out, the last scene is actually more speaks to what my interpretation of this is what it feels like to be a black man in America, which is you're always got someone behind you. You're always being pressured. You're always being pursued. You can't really relax. But so anyway, I just want to say that visually, I think that this shot is amazing from the first time I saw it. So just a little like geeking over the director's job here. So how well he did.
Also, the line actually just occurred to me. The line "Get your money, black man" reminds me a little bit of Still DRE, where he goes in about Dr. Dre sings about I love to see young black men get money, take their moms out the hood, no more living hard. I don't know if that's necessarily the thing he's going for there, but it's certainly a theme throughout hip hop and rap that it might be seen by some fucking idiots as a slightly racist thing, but actually the idea of black people being for black people in the way that white people just automatically are for white people is seen as out there, in the same way that like a woman having 50% of the conversation is seen as over-representation, because anything less than your hegemony is, that's seen as you losing your privilege or whatever.
Another, I think, final almost interpretation maybe we're getting to is that you notice that a lot of these cars have their hazards lights on and their doors are open, like black men who are pulled over for stops.
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay. I hadn't picked up on that.
So I think you can see this person on the far left there seems to be wearing some sort of top and dark pants, and this person's got a white.
Yeah, there's no uniform there, is there?
No, no.
So shut up, Mr. Winters.
Papa Winters. It's just interesting how people remember things, you know, what they remember. So. And there we
also,
go.
I think it's quite interesting that you was it Michael Batman? You're just a barcode.
Yeah, that's it. That's what I would say. Like the lyrics just reinforce the visuals that even if you're a great musician, even if you're on top, even if you're doing everything you're supposed to, right? You could get pulled over by a cop who doesn't know who you are and could get shot.
Yeah,
it doesn't change.
I've told the story before, haven't I, about Darbo Cephalosha, who, I mean, we mentioned basketball earlier, plays in the NBA, and he was playing for the Atlanta Hawks at the time. He was on big money. Like he'd made it as a black man in America, and was pulled over for something really shitty and technical. But luckily, because he had that money, he was able to get a private lawyer rather than having to take like the state lawyer, who initially, when they first arrived, just said take the plea deal, even though he wasn't guilty. He knew he wasn't guilty, and had he been too poor, he'd have had to take the plea deal and gone to jail for like 2 years instead of 10.
Yeah,
he was innocent, but luckily he could afford it.
And that happens a lot to people who are poor, whose lawyers just say, look, you know, you can see your kids in 10 years or you can see them in 2. And when you take a plea deal, even if you're innocent, you're not allowed to appeal.
Yeah, exactly. You're
done. Like, even if you're innocent, you can prove it. It doesn't matter if you've already pled guilty. You have no opportunity to have your case reheard.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that was, I have to say, like I said, the lyrics are a little sparse. I mean, they're still pointed and really quite brilliant, but they're a bit sparse. But when you put it all together, it's a truly tremendous piece of art. Anyway, do you want me to screen share these images?
Oh yeah. So that's right. I was going to pull up the yeah. You do that, and I'll get the relevant image that I thought. You can go ahead and do the first one. Oh no, we'll do them in order. So sorry, we'll do the face one first. You see my detective work.
Delay.
I'm going to turn the sound down this time, and so you tell me when you're ready to go, and I'll tell you when I'm ready to go.
Oh my God, what are you talking about now? Look, I've just got it up on my screen, but if I screen share, you won't be screen sharing.
No, we can both screen share.
Can we? Well, it's like fucking communism now. I can screen share, you can screen share, Stalin can fucking screen share.
Each according to his ability and each according to his screen sharing needs.
Hang on, so there we go. Can everyone see the black face now?
Now I will screen share. Oh no, I just hit play instead of unpause, and so I have to go back.
Women, Jesus.
Technology. I only run this show every time we do it.
Well, we're now under a month until my strike runs out, unless I get another one. Hint, hint. All right.
Okay, so here we go. I'm going to screen share now. All right. So, yep. So, dang it. Every time I do that, I hit the play button when it leaves. So I just have to scroll back and do this for the 3rd time. This is stupid. All right. There we go. That one right there.
Right. And
so when you
think it looks like that image there.
Looks like
Yeah. Can you see that, Krista?
Well, I'm screen sharing, so I can't see it, but I'm assuming the audience can see it because when you talk, they see your screen.
Well, if I'm going to talk now, and if everyone can see it, I'll see in the chat, and then we'll see if it works. Because it's not like we've been doing this for fucking ages.
It's not like we're professionals. You should know what we're doing at this point.
Yeah, exactly. So if everyone can tell me whether they saw that or not.
Now there's going to be a bit of a lag. So.
Well, exactly. I can see it. Someone in Geek can see it, and that's all that matters.
Well, that's all we need to know, right? And yep, and then we want to do the very famous image from this video.
Yes, it's the Jim Crow character, which I didn't realize. The posture he holds is apparently an allusion to the fact that a lot of ex-slaves were essentially physically crippled.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay, another shot, another sort of stabbing in the guts. Okay.
Yeah, it's horrific, isn't it? Absolutely horrific. But there you go. And that's the like I say, it struck me as weird at first, and I didn't quite realize until I looked it up myself. But that image, when he's crouched forward like that, about to shoot the guy, that's where I knew that posture from.
Yeah.
It's that
So
Jim
obviously
Crow
he's, you know, compensating for his gun hand, but you can definitely see from the leg movements and from the arm if you just, you know, sort of swap them around.
because
you
it
can-
is that's a very unique posture he's pulling there. That's clearly not just doing that for like some sort of artistic effect. That's clearly meant to be a Jim Crow reference.
Yeah.
Just amazing in a way. But anyway, yes.
Oh,
So
by the way, I can tell now. I don't know if, well, you can't see, but if you hover over your Chrome thing, it'll pop up all your windows. And so when I talk, I can see that they can see me. And when you talk, I can see that they can see you. So everyone can see what they need to see.
well, good. I think I don't fucking know. It worked. That's all that matters. It worked.
We pulled it off once again.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the amazing piece of art that I've just been obsessed with for the last, like, I don't know, 72 hours or whatever it's
Well, I
been.
wasn't gonna be that big about it, but then I wasn't gonna like rush into seeing it because I thought, well, it's a song, it's got people talking and stuff, but like, I'll give it a couple of days, whatever. And then you were like, I want to do a thing, so I thought, okay, well,
Pretty much.
I'd at least better watch it. And so, like I said, I looked at the lyrics and watched the thing, and I was like, what the fuck? Yeah, it's powerful stuff.
Yeah, what was your first like when you first watched it and saw it? What was that story?
It was like I say, it was really, really fucking powerful, man. It was it's odd because obviously we don't grow up with guns at all here in Britain.
Yeah.
So the idea of just that casual nature of just, oh, I'm just going to shoot a dude, that's mad. But obviously that just happens. But that I can't get to that place mentally in America where even like the Las Vegas attack happens and everyone's just like, well, not everyone, because a lot of people do support gun control, but it's just so blasé the way they talk about these things, as if fucking 100 people just didn't get shot. You didn't just see that. The fuck? Why is nothing changing? Oh, it's madness. Because I mean, in Britain we had the Dunblane thing in the 90s, and everyone just went, okay, well we'll ban that then, and it hasn't happened since. Brilliant.
I don't know how many gun manufacturing companies you have in the UK, though. I think, remember, the NRA is basically a front for all the gun manufacturers who are interested in selling guns, and the way that they sell guns is by making people feel like their guns are under threat from the government when they're not.
Well, exactly. Yeah, that great line was it. But the people who say only a good guy with a gun stops a bad guy with a gun sounds like someone trying to sell two guns.
Right. Yeah, and of course, you know.
So I'm not saying it's easy, but the American people need to wake the fuck up, because I mean, what's going on is slaughter.
Yeah, and concealed carry is white privilege. I mean, you can't be anything other than a white man, basically, a white woman with a gun first, and walk around with a concealed weapon and think that you're not going to at least have some problems at some point and possibly be shot dead by a cop who doesn't bother to ask you if you have a permit for that gun.
Exactly, like you have perfectly legal gun owners who cooperate with the law and all the rest of it. Like what was his name? The guy in Minnesota, I want to say. Who reached in just to get his fucking wallet out of his thing and was shot dead.
Yeah.
Perfectly legal gun owner, following what the policeman had told him to do, and he was shot dead. Or you get the guy in his backyard holding, what was he holding? Like a fucking TV remote or some shit, and got gunned down. And got shot like fucking 20 times. What the fuck? Like,
a child got shot because they had a toy gun.
Yeah, exactly. Wow, absolutely. All of that happens, and then you get cunts turn up to Charlottesville to a fucking Nazi rally with huge numbers of guns and walk away scot-free.
Oh, well, one of them even fired it. It wasn't until like months later that they actually, you had to show the video to the police officers going, he tried to shoot the guy who was holding off Nazis with a flaming spray can.
Yeah, not just that, but trying to protect an old man who was about to get kicked the shit out of by these Nazis.
Yeah.
And you saw it the other day when they were marching in, was it Georgia? Yeah. The police were literally holding back the protesters and just allowing the Nazis to do their thing.
Well, they have to by law. You know, you can't. They have to. That's their role. They're not allowed to. But
no. But
the problem is that people feel
crowds of people whilst allowing the Nazis to do it. Well,
I didn't see them beating the cops.
Who's free speech matters here?
No, I didn't see that bit. I saw basically the burning of whatever it was, the swastikas set on fire or something, but I didn't see
look, I'm not saying that the police should just allow anarchy to reign in the streets whenever the Nazis turn up, because that's obviously not an ideal scenario. But you'll notice that when people talk about, like, oh, they had permits, they never talk about counter-protesters being allowed to have permits, do they? It's never that way round. In the same way that with this fucking bullshit in London the other day, Tommy Robinson was allowed to have his say. The Muslim guy wasn't.
Yeah, the Day of Freedom, that wasn't a day of freedom at all.
Yeah, they literally, and not just, but to all of them. Fuck all of them, because if you had any semblance of fucking backbone to you, you'd say, I'm not going on that stage to talk about free speech when this hypocritical bullshit's going on. Either the Muslim guy's allowed to speak, and we all have our freedom of speech respected, or I'm not going on. Every one of them went on.
Yep, they didn't care.
And I'm not defending the guy himself.
No. It's the principle that they're being hypocritical.
Ali Dar was a twat. He doesn't shake women's hand because it says so in the Quran. The man's a douche. But if you're going to have free speech, people, and you're going to go out there and say we need to listen to all sides, and then the one guy with a different opinion turns up and he's not allowed to speak, fuck you.
Yeah, that was just exposed what a fraud it was. It was a total fraud con that was meant to get them more money. That's really what it was about.
And I know that's not particularly relevant necessarily to This Is America, but it just
well, we've held off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What I like, it was going to come up probably at some point, just because that hypocrisy came out on Twitter and what needed to be mentioned. Yeah, especially when you've got people who are being denied their rights, like their civil rights. Like the man who was arrested, and when he was asked about like if he wanted to talk to the police, he said, "No, I want a lawyer, dog." And a judge ruled that he had asked for a hound as his attorney.
Yeah.
What the hell?
A lawyer dog.
What the hell?
Like Scooby was going to walk in and do his defense.
And you're going to complain to me about Count Dankula, who admitted he was trying to be offensive and admitted that he went off and
actually that's a great point. A great point. No one ever mentions in all of this, because I mean obviously it's not the first thing that springs to mind. But when someone's shot dead by the police, that's the ultimate taking away of their freedoms.
Oh yeah.
They don't even have the freedom to breathe oxygen anymore. They're fucking dead. So the idea that it's some great fucking disgrace that Count Dankula is, like I say, for being a prick, was fined 800 quid and raised 150 grand on the back of it. Boo hoo! I'm really going to feel fucking sorry for that cunt, right? The fact that his free speech was somehow tampered with is a disgrace. But yet hundreds of black men can be shot dead and have all of their freedoms taken away from them, including the freedom to life. Yeah. Who cares? Fuck you, man. Oh God, I'm angry now. I'm just angry.
Well, that's a righteous anger.
I'm angry, right? And I'm not even. It's not even like. It sounds peculiar because it doesn't affect me. It doesn't affect me in the slightest. Because obviously I don't live there. I'm not a black guy, and in Britain our police don't have guns. Hint, hint, America, right? But so we get obviously shootings are very rare. But I look at it and I just think there's so much potential there. As you can see, Donald Glover could have been a guy shot dead. Quite easily. Yeah. And yeah, he's the capability to produce such amazing, powerful art is there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the 21st century, like, I look at I haven't lived in the States for about 15 years, and I feel like it has changed a lot in my absence, which is fine because that should. But I do see what I see coming out of the States now are really talented people of color, and really taking their place because they're so talented. Either we see mostly famous in terms of comedians or athletes, but even within diverse fields like on MSNBC, there's more time I'm noticing given to scholars of all backgrounds, and yeah. So on the one hand, you've got some people who are able to make it, but overall, and those people don't cancel out the overall structural inequalities. I mean, if they're able to get this famous and all the obstacles they had to face, imagine if he would have been, had the ease of a white person doing all the same things.
Well, I forget who it was, but it's a great quote about, was it possibly Einstein or someone who, when asked about his own genius, said, I'd feel a lot better if it weren't for the fact that I know 100 equally brilliant people died in cotton fields or something like that, which is so true.
Yeah.
Think of the greatness that could have been. And that's the thing. The idea of the equal opportunity society is fantastic. It doesn't exist. It's a fantasy. Mm-hmm. Because if we had one, you'd have a relatively equal number of everything. You'd have many great black politicians or presidents or artists or whatever, and you don't see that.
And when you do have someone like a Barack Obama, he has to be perfect.
Yeah.
every way. Perfect family
Well,
man, academic record, perfect, no criminal record, not even a whiff of scandal around him. He has to live like a saint with a wife.
Imagine if a black man had Donald Trump's past.
Yeah.
5 kids by 3 different women, cheated on every single, raped and domestically abused. Certainly one of his wives, probably all of them, who knows. Bragged about grabbing white women's vaginas. All of that. There's no way he would have been laughed at the very first selection meeting to even go on a fucking primary ticket. He wouldn't have got anywhere near the presidency. But old orangey McWhite man, you can stroll up there and do it.
Kevin, white privilege doesn't exist. Stop, saying that some people have it easier in American society because it's a meritocracy, man.
Exactly. That's the thing. I always say to these people who are going about equal opportunities. Okay, so you're against inheritance then?
Oh no, people should be able to transfer their property to whomever they want.
Well, that's not equal opportunities then, because I assure you, Donald Trump's small loan of $1 million in the late 60s gave him a great deal of a head start over Barack Obama, coming from nowhere, having to work his ass off to get to Harvard. I assure you. And I'm that inheritance bombshell.
Yeah, precisely. Thanks you guys for watching. Thanks for everyone in the chat for giving me some feedback on the technical sound and video issues.
No, fuck the people in the chat. Jesus Christ.
I always set that up just
and so. They always help me and are nice, and therefore I have to be horrible to them because opening up would be weakness, and men aren't allowed to be weak.
You are toxic masculinity when it comes to the chat.
I should do a parody of that called "This Is Toxic Masculinity," where I dance around and stuff. That would be horrific because I have the body of a fucking hippo.
Can you paint yourself green like people do for American football games in the stadium, in the stands, and then dance around as toxic masculinity being bright green?
I don't know, because I'd have to actually. I'm an actual a fantastic. I'll have to send you the link. It's Donald Glover. I nearly said Donald Trump. Jesus, Donald Glover. Actually, he's a hugely talented man across various different media.
Oh yeah, he's like a triple threat.
He does fantastic stand-up as well. And there's one fantastically woke bit of kind of, I don't know, I suppose feminist stand-up where he's going on about every man's got a crazy woman story. Every man, and he goes on this, do you remember that time with Michelle and she came in and she would, the bunny boiler thing, and he said, why do you never get women who've got like a crazy man story? And he said, because every woman who has a crazy man story ends up dead. Oof. And just this, shit, because it's funny, bang, knife to the gut. And it's so true, because every crazy woman story is like, she wouldn't leave me alone, she kept texting me. Crazy man story involves him tracking you down at your new location. Yeah. That's a really, really strong point, man. Shit. And
that's where it almost becomes performance art rather than comedy. It kind of steps up into that sort of, you're making...
Well, this was exactly another example, wasn't it, this video?
Oh, yeah.
This wasn't hip-hop. This wasn't even really just music. This was like a novel and a film and a song and
social commentary,
and all of that, and the best op-ed you've ever read, all rolled into one.
Yeah, this is why I'm like, I know a lot of people give him credit, and obviously they should because it was his vision, his song, but it was having also a great director who knew how to set up those visuals.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned all of that and brought him into it because I think it was visually spectacular as well.
Yeah, and check out Hiro Murai's other work. So he does some. He's got. Also. So I outside of American culture, really, except for what kind of filters up through the internet. So I hadn't heard of Donald Glover before, and then I did went back and his other videos too.
You hadn't heard of him because he's been around. Like he was.
I've been in Hamilton in my Hamilton cave
and
for a while.
Oh, okay. Because he's been in like quite a few things. He directed Atlanta as well, the FX series.
Yeah, it's hard to get effects for me though.
Oh, okay.
Legally.
Well, what else was he in? He's the new fucking Lando Calrissian.
Apparently, he's blowing up all over this guy. Like he's just everywhere. He's like
he's going to have quite a month because he did SNL. He's just released the hottest track of the year
in America.
Yeah, he's going to be in the new fucking Star Wars film.
And
Jesus.
didn't his TV series just is like finishing its run? Atlanta season 2 is
Yeah.
coming to an end soon or whatever. I don't again know
Yeah,
the
like
TV
it's-
schedules in the States, but
Yeah, he's having himself quite a hot month.
yeah. But again, it's just this a really amazing synthesis and effortlessly so, seamlessly so, a combination of multiple ways of expressing information, lyrically, musically, through dance, through visuals, you know, through symbolism. And it's never overbearing, it's never in your face. You can watch it and not pay attention to any of that and still get something out of it, or you can do it like we did, which is basically spend over an hour breaking down a 4-minute video.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah, it was. Fucking hell.
oh wait, I was in the middle of my wrap up and you interrupted me and now I gotta
That's my point. That's why I'm on this fucking show. Like, it would run smoothly
if it weren't for the co-host. The show would run much smoother if we didn't have the co-host.
Exactly. Well, last week I turned up 2 minutes before we started, so we did no prep whatsoever without guests. And then I turn up and I just rant and go on about killing children randomly.
Yeah.
That wasn't, by the way, that was all like a joke. I don't actually
Yes.
shoot children outside of my dreams.
With water pistols out of the window when they're not like tink, tink.
I tell them to fuck up every now and then because they're bastards, but I'm just a grumpy old man before my time. That's the thing.
You're a grumpy old man by the time you were 10.
Yeah, exactly. I was born with a frown.
All right, everyone. So I did all the things to the chats. Kevin did the insults. I'm getting like it's getting long now. So
That's what she said.
I've been Kristi. You guys have been awesome. Goodbye from me and goodbye from the annoying guy in the corner. Say goodbye, or on the other side of the channel. Say goodbye, annoying guy on the other side of the channel.
Goodbye, annoying guy on the other side of the channel. I nearly forgot that fucking line instantly. As soon as you said it.
Very well done.
Jesus. I